Let's get down to brass tacks. East Tennessee general contractor Johnson & Galyon's managers knew trading in its equipment to rent its entire equipment fleet was going to cost a little more. In this contractor site report, listen to CEO Doug Kennedy describe how the move made project managers and clients' jobs easier, what it did to their equipment rates, and how it affected equipment management expense and demand for skills. You think it was a good investment?
Feels good when I'm living on the edge. Watch me now. Roll like
So Doug, you mentioned the change at the project level for the way the cost of equipment is felt by projects. Essentially, that's motivating project managers to get machines off their fleet or off their site if they're not using it. But what kind of an adaptation, what kind of adjustment did the projects have to make in order to kind of absorb that change?
It wasn't a complicated process for us. We already, because we were renting out so much equipment already from different vendors, it really maybe simplified it to some degree, because instead of, I think I'd mentioned to you, Larry, that we had as many as 8 to 10 different rental companies around town that we were having to monitor, and those invoices for that equipment would always come to the project managers for review and approval before it went to accounting. They were having to make sure that all those different companies were charging the right amounts that they had agreed upon and everything. Now we have set amounts with Stowers in that program. Every piece of equipment has a set amount for rental on it, so that takes a lot of that work away from both the superintendents and the project managers to have to worry about that. And so that part was simplified even more. The rest of the process flowed pretty much the way it had before. Yeah. Those invoices would come in to our project managers for review and approval. Now all they have to worry about is making sure it got charged to the correct job.
Yeah. Does it change the way a superintendent or a project manager looks at their equipment budget?
The great thing about it was, from that standpoint, this was a very simple transition.
You're pushing some of those overhead costs that the company would put into an overhead account for your owned equipment and that sort of thing, sort of out to the projects. And if there was any pushback from superintendents about that, handling that cost at their level?
There was not. We had some concerns that the rental program that we had internally before was set up to where at one point in time we were able to tell our clients that we were renting it at 15% lower than market rates. This is getting into some details that you may not care about, but we were able to tell them we do that. Several years ago, the industry basically set some rates of here's what equipment's worth. We were afraid that when all rental equipment started showing up on the invoices, pay requests that we send to the clients, that they might start questioning that. I think it actually makes them more comfortable. The clients we have talked to about our new program basically say, well, we trust you guys completely. You've been our contractor for, in many cases, 40, 50 years. But this just simplifies it from our accounting process, that we now are not having to worry about, are we checking to make sure we're getting the same price from rental equipment from Johnson & Galyon as the industry standard. I think in every case, the negotiated numbers we have are as good as what we were charging clients before. So that just simplified everything about the whole process, from internal and even the pay applications we send on to our clients. Larry, as we looked at the rental program, we studied numerous aspects of it. One of the things that was never an issue for us was, is it going to, as a company, save Johnson & Galyon money? We wanted to make sure that our clients weren't impacted from a negative standpoint and it cost them more. Through the negotiations, we worked through that and that all worked out. But we also never looked at it as a way that we could make more money. We were confident that this change would probably have a net negative impact on our money. It wasn't enough money that it was a deal killer. It was really more of an investment in all those other things we've talked about. We got better equipment. It got us out of the maintenance business. It solved the problem of how do we manage this corporately. So there was a whole series of things that said, this is an investment. It may cost us a little bit of money, but it is worth it.
Your considering this rental excursion a bit of an investment, but it does keep you from having to expend more money on management of equipment. Do you think that's a net savings for the company?
It absolutely is. We have not quantified that yet. I think we will at some point in time, at least to some level. As I've stated in the process we went through, we looked at a variety of things. One of them was we knew we were going to have to, one, replace this very simple fleet management software program we had that we got notified was ending, and it did. We had lost that. We had had to scramble to just come up with a program. When we started looking at others, there was expense to that. If you get another program, you've got to have someone to, as I think I mentioned earlier, own that program.
Yeah.
We knew we were going to have to bring in someone to manage that. Our people in the yard are really, they're mechanics, they're truck drivers, they are a lot of different things, but they're not, the people who would run a computer program for managing fleet. We have started putting together what would the expenses been. I would tell you that's not a high priority, so it'll happen probably during some kind of year-end analysis of how we've done. There were a lot of things, not just personnel, not just software. There were a lot of things we knew we were going to have to do. We were going to have to change our facilities because, as I mentioned, and the equipment that we use to do maintenance, because as I mentioned, every piece of new equipment we've bought over the last 2, 3, 4 years, the technology has totally changed. The old tools that we had that used to made it very simple for our guys to work on equipment no longer were working. So it was a broad range of things that we were going to have to upgrade to stay in the rental program that we have.
Nights can't be contained. I got